You know what? When it rains, it pours. Let me just explain. Not only is it raining out here, and like I've said in my last few videos, it's been raining for about, well, over 2 weeks now, straight, every day. The rains are only increasing. They're coming down harder and faster, and for more and more hours out of the day. That's typical for fall here in Alaska. It's the start of winter for us, is our rainy season, at least in this part of Alaska. But also typical of this time of the year is when critters start looking to find warmth and a dry place to settle down for the winter. And remember when I first moved into my cabin and I had a squirrel living in my cabin? If you don't remember that video or you haven't seen it, I will link it up above. But watch this clip and then I'll explain. So that was me putting a trap up in that corner up there where the squirrel was coming into the cabin. Since then, I've had a new roof put on my cabin because when I moved in, it had this dilapidated foam roof on it. And you would think, oh, well, that solved the problem. That was until last night. Kenai, what is that? What is that? Oh, God. Yeah, and just after, hearing that mouse and trying to get it to go away from poking a hole in my wall, as soon as he stopped making noise, on the very opposite side of the cabin, up along the roof line, was another, what I can only assume, mouse, trying to chew through the little bit of foam that I put up there last year to block holes. Now, I could barely reach that, so I'm going to have somebody come out and help me plug up that area and get some steel wool put up in there. But right now, I need to move all of this from the corner of the yard and get up on a ladder and get that area sealed up so that I don't have any more mice trying to come in. Now, I did set a trap underneath the dresser last night where I heard the mouse, and I did actually catch the mouse that was trying to come in. And I've been busy for the last few days going around and plugging up every hole I can find with steel wool, just trying to eliminate as many entry points for the mice as possible. But it makes me wonder how many more out there that I can't see or I can't get to. And with as many mice as I have seen recently, I think this winter is going to be, or at least the fall until the snow gets deep enough, is just going to be an ongoing battle of finding and killing mice. Here's some clips from last week's video that I tried to film where you may not be able to see it on camera, but I talk about how there's a mouse that just ran across the screen. Things have done really well and some things haven't, and I apologize that my brain just went like that because I just saw a big mouse run right across in front of the cabin. It is that time of the year where the mice are starting to come indoors and look for shelter. So I've been setting the traps, and what I have been using is still the same borax and baking soda mix to get the ones that don't get in the traps. And they are eating that, but really I'm catching them before they even have a chance to desiccate. And I've been using just those like pepperoni sticks or beef sticks that you can get like at a convenience store, and breaking those up into thirds and applying those to an old-fashioned mouse trap. and that has worked like a charm. They have to bite into it in order to get it off of the trap. They can't just lick it away like they do peanut butter or anything else. And I've been catching quite a few mice. So, sorry, there was another mouse I just saw. It is wintertime and the mice are on the move. They're looking to find shelter anywhere they can, and they're moving into the cabin. In fact, this morning I was awakened to one of the traps setting off and having to dispose of a mouse. So I'm feeling this winter I'm going to have a lot of work cut out for me. But I also know that having this wood stacked up against the cabin and the wood that's stacked up in front of the cabin is not necessarily the best idea, because it gives them a place to hide. And then they're right up against the cabin where they can gnaw a hole into the cabin and find their way in. Or they can come in when I open up the door. So, all right, I'm going to start clearing this out. I'm going to get up on this ladder and I'm going to get this hole plugged up so that hopefully I don't have any more mice coming into the bedroom, at least from this area. And just to show how much rain there is, I don't know if you can see this chair, but this is just from last night's rain. Needless to say, this chair should have been put up a while ago. But it is an older chair, and it's since been replaced. All the other chairs have been tucked away. So, also, for those of you who are going to mention that I need a cat, I agree. A cat would be a good thing to have here, but it's going to have to wait until Kenai is no longer with me, which I hope is many, many years from now. But Kenai does not like cats, nor other dogs. So, in the meantime, it's just me hunting mice. Ugh. Ooh, that's stupid. Do not climb up a ladder with a screwdriver pointed at your belly. Dumb. 3 points of contact. Remember that if you ever climb a ladder. And 1 point of contact should not be like this. I'm setting a bad example. Okay, so this is foam that was put on last year where the squirrel was. But back here, there's another opening here. There's a split in the log here. And then way up there, I think, is where the mouse came in. I realize the camera angle in this might not be showing anything, so I apologize. But it's the best I can do up under the roof in tight quarters like I am. So I'm going to stick some steel wool into every one of these holes, and then I'm going to put some spray foam over the top of it and hope that that prevents the mouse from trying to enter the bedroom again. What a pain is this? So I'm going to get this taken care of. I don't think I can really get a good angle of this, sorry. But again, I'm just using some steel wool pads that you can get at the local hardware store or any hardware store. And I'm just going to tuck these up in these corners, fill up all of these holes, and then, like I said, put spray foam over it. Ugh, I hate mice. So while I was up here, I took my camera up along the bird netting or bird screening that is meant to provide ventilation for the roof, but keep birds from nesting up in your roof. And I found that while it's tacked at the top and the bottom, it's not tacked on the sides. Oh, frustrating, because now mice are able to push their way through that untacked section of the bird screening and make their way into my cabin and nest in my insulation. Remember, I pulled all the insulation out of the cellar because it was full of mouse and rodent feces. Oh my God.
You were right. It's nasty.
Yeah, look at all that. So gross. Oh, now I have them nesting in my roof. My roof that I just had put on. Ah! So now I'm going up into that bird screening, and I'm tucking some steel wool up along those sides. I can't get to it from the inside of the cabin because there's vapor barrier tacked down and the insulation's in front of it. So I can't get to it unless I take all that apart to tack those sides down. But what really concerns me is if it's happening here, it's probably happening on every other piece of bird screening that's on my roof. And so mice could be coming in from anywhere. And like I said, I had mice clear on the other side of the cabin. I could hear them gnawing through the foam. This is just ridiculous. But what this does go to show is that I need to get soffits put underneath my roof. By putting soffits up here, it would close off this area and prevent mice and birds and whatever else from being able to get into that netting or screening or whatever. So one more thing that I'm going to need to do. I should have had it done when I had the roof done, and this would be a non-issue. I'm going to turn the camera around. I'm going to show you what a mouse trying to make a hole inside the cabin looks like. So if you have a cabin, maybe this will help you spot it right away. So you see all this debris in here? If you look in the very back, you can see that really dark hole. That's where mice are coming in, and they're chewing away at everything to get into the cabin right there. So that's another hole that needs to be fixed. Down here's another one. This is turning out to be a bigger project than I expected. I thought it was coming out to just stuff one opening with some steel wool, but now I'm stuffing every opening that I can find with steel wool. I'm very frustrated at the moment, but I want the mice to stop coming into the cabin, and if this helps, then I'm doing it. So back to work I go. When I come back after this commercial break, we'll have some positive things to talk about. Oh, yeah. Well, despite the fact that it's still raining out here, I still have to get things done. I have a lot of wood to stack. In my last video, I showed that I got 3 cords of wood delivered. That's all been stacked beside me. And outside of the woodshed, there's yet another 3 cords yet to be stacked. I have 6 more cords that are going to be delivered. And inside the woodshed, I should be able to get about 7 cords of wood in here total if I take up the walk space that I'm standing in right now and that I had open last year. Why do I need to take up all that space? Well, as I said, I have another 6 cords of wood that are going to be delivered, and I need a place to store it all. I want to store all this wood under cover so that it really has an opportunity to dry out. This wood is supposed to be 2-year seasoned wood, but I'm not sure that it is. And the reason that I say that is because this piece, which I just pulled out of the wood pile a moment ago, as you can see, is covered in green moss and lichen. Had this wood been 2-year seasoned, all of that would be dried up and flaking away. But since it's not, I'm assuming this is last year's cut. Nonetheless, even if this was 2-year seasoned wood, I have another issue. And that is that this wood came from the Matanuska Valley, and they've had nothing but rain this summer. And so this wood is really, really heavy, meaning that even if it was 2-year seasoned, it's soaked up a lot of that moisture this winter. So before I burn any of this wood, I'm going to take a moisture meter to it and ensure that I'm only burning the driest pieces in the wood stove. And I'll be burning some of the wood that I had left over from last year at the beginning of the season, and give this wood an opportunity to dry out even more before I use it. So before I proceed any further though, I do want to say thank you to Joan, who sent me that moisture meter last year. Thank you very much. It's come in very handy. So as I said, this wood is 3 cords here, another 3 cords there. Let me show you where else I'm going to be stacking some more wood. So this wood right here is last year's wood, what's remaining of it. I have just under half a cord of wood, maybe a quarter, somewhere between there, left. And that wood I'm going to be taking inside the cabin and storing it underneath the kitchen counter. And then this walkway that I have built out in front of me here of pallets and plywood, I should be able to get another 3 cords of wood stacked here. If I needed to, I could extend this out a little bit further to these log poles and maybe get 5 cords total in this area. I might have to tarp off the front of it. But between 7 in there and 5 out here, I should be able to get all 12 cords stacked. But I'll also be storing some over at the bunkhouse. Well, if I need to, I could stack some wood here in front of the bunkhouse. As you can see, this little porch area has a roof over it. But unfortunately, starting at about here, it's got a leak in the roof. And so this section of this area is sopping wet right now. So I'll need to remedy that before I actually stack anything up here. Because as I mentioned, the point of stacking the wood under cover is to keep it dry. And that is not going to happen back there right now. You can clearly see that wet area as I step away from there. And I also don't think anybody's going to be using the bunkhouse this winter. For one is I have no plans on anybody coming out. And the other thing is I'd mentioned earlier in the year that I need to have some electrical work done. The power line running from the main cabin to the bunkhouse is buried only about 5 inches deep. And I'm going to have some driveway work done before winter sets in. And they're going to shave off a portion of that. And so to prevent that from being sliced or fault rather occurring in that line, I went ahead and cut the power to the bunkhouse. I will be having my son out next year to replace that line for me and do some additional work in the cabin. So that is being planned out as I speak, and that will get that taken care of. But in the meantime, winter is going to be here, and I need to get this yard cleaned up before the snow arrives. Because once snow hits here in Alaska, it doesn't leave. So once it's here, I expect I won't see anything that's left on the ground for about 9 months. So let me show you some of the things I've already gotten accomplished, and one other thing that I need to do that'll help me with my firewood and clean up an area of the yard. Well, Kenai and I are also very happy that I managed to get the ladder put up along the edge of the Arctic entry. It's actually attached to the roof up there so that it cannot slide back and forth. And then it's also tethered down here. So now I have a means of access to the chimney in the winter months, and I should no longer have to get on the steepest parts of the roof, because where it attaches up here at the ridge line is actually the flattest part of the roof. One of the things that I just did was I condensed this fire ring. You can see by the outer darker ring that this was much larger. But for just me, I don't need that big of a fire ring. I don't really plan on having huge bonfires out here. And I typically just use this for a restful place to sit and relax at the end of the day. Or I might do some cooking on this once in a while. Like the other day, I made some bread pudding out here for breakfast. But there's no need for me to have such a giant fire ring. And one of the things I did when I tightened this up was I dug through here and pulled out all of this came out of this fire pit. This is all scrap metal. There's a few broken tile pieces, but most of this is nails and staples and a bit of wire that came out of the kitchen from previously. So now that this has been cleaned out though, I should be able to use it. And that way, when they plow the snow, they can come right up to this without impacting the fire ring itself. So that's one thing that I've done. But let's go around back and I'll show you something else I've got to get done. One of the things on my to-do list is to clean up this side yard. This is leftover roofing material that I'm going to move to the other side of the yard where there's some additional roofing material being stored. So I'm just going to condense all of this into one area. I might have to leave this plywood here because I really don't have anywhere else dry to store it. But nonetheless, this area needs to be cleared so that the oil company can get to the new oil tank, which is just behind the cabin, behind the old green oil tank that's here. That green oil tank is coming down soon and will be exiting the property. And then I need to take care of all these saplings that are growing up here. So again, they have a clear means of access to that oil tank. But just behind that oil tank is my next project. When I had the roof replaced on the cabin, all the old rafters, which were just simply spruce logs, got piled up behind my cabin. And you can see 2 piles here of those old log rafters. I don't really have a use for these log rafters, and so I'm going to cut them up and burn them. Either they're going to be used for my trash burner or they'll be used in the fire pit. But right here, you can see what the immediate need to get this resolved is. is that this ladder, which is going to the new oil tank, has a log that is pretty much 6 inches away from it, and there's a huge spike sticking out of it. That is a safety hazard if ever there was one. So I'm going to buck up all this wood, get it moved away from here so that when the oil tank gets filled, it won't be an issue for the guy doing the work. And besides that, there's a lot of just debris out here that needs to be cleaned up. You can see the old tarps, the old bathtub, all of that is stashed back here. And I'd like to get it cleaned up because I do not like seeing junk stacked up around my property. I would like to have a nice, beautiful view of a very serene and calm environment. I keep joking about these logs being heavy by doing this. They're 50 years old and they're really dry, so they're not that heavy, as you saw by the bounce. So wish me luck in getting all this done because I don't know exactly when snow is going to fall, but it's going to be here before I know it. So I've got my work cut out for me. Speaking of work cut out for me, let's head inside and I'll show you something else about the bird screening that I've discovered. So the other night I was up in the bedroom, which is just on the other side of the camera here, and I heard a noise. And I thought, what in the world am I hearing now? Well, just right here over my shoulder on that post right there, there was an ermine in the cabin. He saw me and he scurried along the top of the wall here and made his way back out of the cabin. So that told me for sure that there is a hole somewhere in the bird screening on the other side of the cabin. I'd already bought some aluminum wire mesh to tack from the outside of all of the bays. But after looking at it, I decided that might not be the best or the simplest solution. So instead, I got up there with some spray foam and I spray foamed all of those bays along the edges and on the one where the ermine was coming in at the very top. Well, speaking of how I've been seeing mice around the cabin and how I saw the ermine in the cabin, I also saw an ermine run across here the other day and in the wood pile. Kenai's also noticed the ermine in a pile of wood that was stacked up behind the cabin. And unlike the squirrel, Kenai does not mind the ermine. He actually kind of likes it. But I don't think he realizes, despite how cute they are, they're vicious. So the ermine can stay though, just not in the cabin. So my contractor was also out over the last couple of days doing some work around the property. For one is he re-leveled the back of the property due to some high spots that were in it that need to be addressed. And then he managed to collapse in the old greenhouse. Now I know there were a lot of you that had asked if I'd be using that greenhouse, but it really was not usable. It was not safe to be in. And there wasn't much in it that was salvageable. A lot of the wood was rotten and the panels are so old that they're just shattering upon touching them. So he collapsed that in, and then he moved my incinerator over to a new spot on the property, which will make it much easier to use, especially in the winter months. I won't have to trek as far, and I can keep an eye on it while the trash is burning. And while my contractor was here, he also managed to grade the driveway that loops around in front of the bunkhouse. That will help the water shed off towards the woods and not pool in front of the bunkhouse or the cabin itself. I also had him cut the corner of the woods off behind me here, leading away from the bunkhouse out towards the main driveway. That way, the oil tanker will have a place to turn and exit the driveway without getting stuck or having to do a 20-point turn just to get out of here, which they won't do, especially in the snow. Now, speaking of the winter, I also met with the guy who is going to be taking care of plowing the driveway, and have talked to him about what my plans are this year, so he knows where he can push snow off to. And I also had some areas cut into the woods so that we can push snow off into them, which will make the driveway stay better this year too, because last year it just was getting more and more narrow because we didn't have anywhere to push the excess snow off to. So all of these things have taken place around the property this week. It's been a very busy week here. But you know, I do want to say that if you like homesteading and you're interested in watching somebody build their homestead, then I highly recommend that you check out JK Mountain Dreams. Now, JK Mountain Dream, their channel is run by Jeff and Jenny, a couple. They have the cutest personalities, and if they could stay out of the emergency room, I think they would do just fine. So I want to wish them well on everything that they have going on and hope that they're on the mend. But I also would like to encourage you to go over and check out their channel. And speaking of checking some things out, let's head back inside. I've got some other goodies I'd like to share with you. This week I received a wonderful care package from Alita Rape, who sent me a whole selection of things for myself and for Kenai. And speaking of Kenai, she sent in some Beneful healthy weight dog food and some rawhide treats from her 5-year-old dachshund pup that is solid black, just like Kenai. I'm sure Kenai is going to love these, along with this chew toy. She also sent me a cell phone holder, magnifying light, some utility hooks, a flashlight, actually 2 flashlights, a level, and some clamps, as well as some zip ties. All of these are very useful things that I'm sure I'll get plenty of use of over the years. And then she sent me some work gloves, some hot pads, some cute little salt and pepper shakers, a cutter scraper for the kitchen, and then she sent me some personal items for myself as well. Some stockings, some hand soap, some socks, some little booties, gloves, some more sunglasses. You know, I love the last ones. These are super cute as well. And then she also sent me a scarf, a Christmas card, a note for myself, and then she sent me these wonderful doilies that her mom actually made in the 30s. So thank you, Alita. All of these things are fabulous. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness. There was a lot going on this week, and I appreciate you sticking around through all of it. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, and maybe you actually learned something out of it too. Either way, if you're still watching, chances are that you like this video, and I encourage you to hit that like button. I also would like to encourage you to subscribe if you haven't already. And I do want to say thank you to all of the new subscribers, as well as the new Patreon and channel members. You guys help make this channel what it is. So with that being said, I want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to Alita again. And I want to say, please stay safe and take care. Enjoy these outtakes. And until next time, I'll be right here, just doing more projects. See you next week. But it really wasn't salvageable, and it wasn't safe to be inside of. So he knocked that down, and then a gnat flew in my ear and my mouth and my eye all at the same time. Ah! Take 2. The gnats are worse than the mosquitoes. Horrible. Mice, gnats, and mosquitoes. 3 things I can do without in Alaska. You know how many times I've shot this scene? I think 20 so far. Yeah. I want to go kick the buckets where he's at and get him out of there. Are you eating on my bed? It's no wonder we have mice. Oh, you don't even care.